As protectors of the community, police are expected to be tough. But what happens when they take their aggression home and are violent with the people they're supposed to love? Tonight, brave victims tell disturbing accounts about domestic violence perpetrated by police officers. It's something most of us find unimaginable, but cops crossing the line is a growing problem in Australia. Equally concerning is the apparent willingness of many of their colleagues to look the other way when it comes to investigating these crimes.
I can, in this moment now, smell his breath. I can smell the cigarettes. I can smell the alcohol. And I can feel the pressure on my neck. It's horrible.
What was your brain telling you at the time to do?
Just to fight. I just kept thinking the kids are going to die. He's going to kill the kids. And I think if I hadn't done what I did, he maybe would have.
One day back in June 2017, Darren Hanegraaff came home angry. It wasn't at all unusual, but what happened next was the turning point in a fractured and violent relationship.
We were having a fight about my job, and I walked away from the conversation because if I didn't walk away from those sort of interactions, they'd escalate. He took that as me being disrespectful. Ended up in punching me in the face in the corridor. I went out to get away from him, got dragged down the driveway by my hair, sort of back of the neck. Head slammed into the letterbox and then was just over the top of me, just doling out punches and was screaming at me about how disrespectful I was.
This attack was more violent than all the others. But as Jay lay bloodied and writhing in pain, she knew how hard it would be to escape her attacker. Not just because Darren Hanegraaff was controlling and violent, but also because he was a serving Victorian police officer.
Why is it so hard to take on the police?
Short answer, because they're accountable to no one.
So what you're saying is if you're a policeman, policewoman, and you inflict family violence...
You'll get away with it.
You'll get away with it.
You won't be held to account and your victim will be treated like a crook by your colleagues. You'll be protected.
And yet you've decided to speak out. Why?
Because there are women right now in the circumstances that I was in and children in the same circumstances as my children who are suffering right now, and they deserve to be safe, and we have the right to be safe in our own homes. And that's why I'm speaking.
There is nowhere to go for help. There is no safe place. There is no one to save you when you are dealing with a police member, because they are the police.
Tonight, brave women risk their safety to reveal their battles against their police partners, subjecting them to family violence. The police are the very people we expect to protect us. But what happens when they abuse their power? When they bash their partners and are protected by their own?
And this culture of impunity that operates to protect and excuse officers who use violence is absolutely a crisis of community safety, and it's a scandal.
Not only a scandal, but a shocking failure, adding to the unthinkable terror for victims. And even senior police admit it's bad.
That's not acceptable. We don't want them in Victoria Police.
Jay is a Melbourne mum with 2 kids. She's also a lawyer with a strict attention to detail and an inner steel. But love can be blinding. In 2014, close friends set her up with a policeman, Darren Hanegraaff.
We sort of hit it off when we're friends to start with, and it progressed from there just like a normal relationship does. I didn't see red flags early on when we got together that I can see now.
Jay's son Sam was 8 years old when Darren entered his life as a stepdad.
When I first met him, he, to be honest, wasn't that bad. He played cricket and footy with me all the time, and he was really starting to seem like a good father figure for me.
And when did that change?
It was maybe 6 months to a year, and he just started to drink more. He started to want us to do things exactly his way. As things went on, the fear, the panic, those sort of emotions just started to rise and rise, and I'm not quite sure how I bared it, to be honest.
From good to bad in just a year, the relationship turned dark and violent, especially when Darren was drinking. Tragically, Jay blamed herself.
I would take on responsibility for his behaviour, and he would blame me for his behaviour. If he hit me, it was like, well, you set me off. And it sounds stupid, and it is, in hindsight, I guess, stupid, but that's how you think.
That cycle continued for more than 3 years. When Darren erupted, he was erratic and dangerous. In July 2018, things got much worse. In an attack, he choked Jay several times before threatening to use his police revolver on Jay and her 2 kids.
He ended up out the front, and he's still trying to punch me. And then he's left the property, just going 1 dead C word, 2 dead C words, 3 dead C words, myself and the kids.
After years of being trapped and staying silent, knowing the people she would ordinarily call for help were his friends and colleagues, Jay finally called the police. What they did next is shameful.
You get a whole lot of people showing up with a whole lot of shoulder bling telling you not to make a statement.
Is that what they told you?
Not directly on the night. So I sent a text message to the sergeant and said that I was really afraid of him, especially when he's drunk, because he crosses the line when he's really angry. And I got a pretty solid ticking off for doing that, because he said, because he put that in writing, and you shouldn't be so stupid and put stuff like that in writing.
Sorry, so this is the senior station policeman says to you, you've done the wrong thing, don't put
this stuff in writing.
Because it'll trigger an investigation.
Yeah, I think he saw it as a relationship problem. He didn't see it as more than that.
How could they not see what was going on?
The guys who do family violence, they're not the bikies. I mean, yes, bikies do it, but it's the average middle-aged suburban bloke who does it, who's a good guy, who mows the neighbour's nature strip. Probably volunteers at Rotary. It's not the guy you think's going to do it.
And add to that, if the guy's a cop.
Yeah, well, then he's definitely a good guy, isn't he?
Jay's decision to report her husband, Senior Constable Hanegraaff, as a family violence perpetrator would start a years-long battle. Jay says she faced fierce pressure from police to stay quiet. A senior police colleague of Hanegraaff's came knocking with a not-so-subtle threat.
Kids were eating dinner, he was in uniform, and was saying, going to court next week, you want to think about what your choices are, being more supportive, because, if you go forward and press charges, it'll have employment consequences for him. And a man with nothing to lose is a dangerous man. You need to think about that. It's pretty obvious what that means, isn't it?
And what does that mean?
I took it as you're going to end up in a body bag if you both go through with this. I took it as we're not going to support you if you report this.
Sam, who was 11 by now, listened to the conversation with his sister. He heard the police officer describe Darren as a dangerous man.
My sister the next day was really scared and tried to tell my mum to not make a statement.
How did that make you feel?
Honestly, a bit confused, because at the time I still had those values that police were good. I feel like he was treated differently because he was a policeman, and that angered me even more.
Coming up,
I thought I could trust this female family violence detective.
protecting their own.
She disclosed that information to his manager.
Unforgivable treachery.
A family violence perpetrator was a family violence investigator.
Yep.
In out of touch.
It's absolutely a national issue and it's a scandal.
And unaccountable police forces.
What confidence do they give you in the system?
Absolutely none.
That's next on 60 Minutes. When Jay decided to report her husband, Darren Hanegraaff, a policeman, to the force for repeatedly bashing her, she hoped for support. But far from helping, Victoria Police put her in even more danger by disclosing her secret plan to flee her violent husband.
we decided we'd go to Sydney. And my boss said to me, why don't you tell the family violence detective next time she contacts you that that's what you're doing, because she can help you manage your safety. Because the most dangerous time for any family violence victim is when she leaves or when her perpetrator thinks she's going to leave. And I thought I could trust this female family violence detective. She then disclosed that information to his manager.
His mate?
His mate, yep, at the station.
Did Darren know?
He did know.
How on earth could Victoria Police think it's okay to tell the perpetrator, the man bashing and assaulting you, of your secret plan to flee?
Like, you can't do that. But if it's a police member, it's okay on member welfare grounds, never thinking about my safety.
At risk and on the run, Jay moved from state to state, living in women's shelters with her kids. But amid the turmoil and uncertainty, this brave woman was still planning her fight back.
What kept you going?
Kids. I want them to have a safe life. That's what's kept me going. And that's probably 90% of it. And then 10% of it is, this is not right, and I'm fighting this. This is crap.
You did decide to fight.
I know the law really well because I've worked in it. And I also have a very good grasp of Victoria Police policies and procedures. So when they come out with crap like it was a permitted disclosure, I know it's not. I know how to challenge them. I know how to call them out. I know how to hold them to account. And most victims don't. So I kind of figure that I have to fight for myself, but I've got to fight for others too. Because how many other women have police forces done this to?
What we know at the moment in Victoria is that members of the general community who perpetrate family violence are 4 times as likely to be arrested, charged or cautioned as compared to people within Victoria Police. So those massive disparities speak about the level of seriousness with which Victoria Police are treating the issue of family violence perpetrated by members. So one of the
Lauren
first
Caulfield is the
measures
coordinator of the Policing Family Violence Project in Melbourne. She says it's not just a problem in Victoria.
It's absolutely a national issue. So Australia-wide, we're seeing these vast differences in responses when police are responding to family violence that's perpetrated by officers within their own ranks. And this culture of impunity that operates to protect and excuse officers who use violence is absolutely a crisis of community safety, and it's a scandal.
The numbers are damning, but so too are the stories behind them. In early 2018, Victorian mum and community service professional Hazel contacted her local police station to report a potential crime.
The officer that I dealt with took my matter very seriously.
And your feeling at the time was, wow, here's a policeman who seems to really care.
Absolutely, and takes this public serve and protect role very seriously.
But what she thought at first was caring soon became creepy. The police officer took an unusual interest in Hazel and soon after started contacting her from his personal email address. When did it occur to you that it may not be appropriate for a police officer to be trying to establish a personal relationship with the victim of crime?
A long, long time afterwards. Long after the relationship had commenced, it seemed to flow very naturally, very easily, very, very quickly.
Hazel, a vulnerable woman looking for help, unexpectedly found herself in a relationship with this Victorian police officer. For legal reasons, we'll call him Officer A. Within weeks, his obsession with Hazel turned violent and suffocating.
I guess he had a much bigger toolkit to use than a regular Joe Blow, because there's been training that he's had as a police member, monitoring where I was going, under surveillance, essentially.
Did he come to your street?
Frequently. Drive-bys.
Drive-bys?
Yeah, drive-bys of my home. If I wasn't at home and he thought that I should have been at home, I would immediately have contact. Where are you? What are you doing? And if I didn't answer that immediately, then there would be a follow-up to that I must therefore be doing something wrong.
The relationship was at first loving, but to keep control, Hazel suspects Officer A would use police databases to check up on her and her family.
That was around him wanting to pinpoint whom was at my home if it was a vehicle that he did not know. The only way he could have that information was to have accessed privileged information that he has no right to access because it's not a telephone directory.
When Hazel was at her weakest, Officer A was at his worst. After she returned home from surgery, groggy and unwell, he forced himself upon her.
This is obviously a very close to home subject and something that I am only going to touch on very, very lightly. But he raped me in the middle of the night. It's when you are most weak. It's when they or he can get off the most, be the most masculine, be the most in charge, have the most power over you. And it's the most devastating because it reminds you constantly of just how small you are, and when you have hands around your throat, how easily you could be snuffed out.
Unprotected and ashamed, Hazel felt like she couldn't report him to the police, but then something else shocking occurred. Midway through their relationship, still violent and abusive, Officer A requested a transfer to a specialist unit of the force.
Applied to have himself assigned to a particular unit which deals with very vulnerable people, and that's family violence unit.
You're a family violence perpetrator, was a family violence investigator.
Yep.
What confidence did that give you in the system?
Absolutely none. It came across to me that it was essentially a playground for them to be on the hunt for vulnerable women for their own personal gain.
The violence and degradation continued. On one occasion, Officer A assaulted her and then locked her in a bathroom. On another, as a treat, he took her on a holiday where she says he sexually assaulted her in public.
It was like riding a wave. You just never knew where you were on that wave, and all of a sudden you'd have a tsunami and you'd be drowning and then you'd start again.
When you're drowning, how does it feel?
It's the most terrifying experience of my life. Very, very isolating. There is nowhere to go for help. There is no safe place. There is no one to save you when you are dealing with a police member, because they are the police. They're everywhere you go. And when you have a police member who stalks you and abuses you on every front and will do it publicly and in front of family and friends and whomever else because they believe they can get away with it, it is absolutely terrifying.
Coming up,
They expected me to break and go away.
fighting back,
How did I actually survive that?
taking on the bad cops,
I have to do this for all the children that don't have a voice.
and fixing a rotten system.
The best revenge is living your best life.
That's next on 60 Minutes. Early last year, Victorian mum Hazel was being tormented by her partner, a policeman, subjecting her to mental, sexual and other physical abuse. Officer A, as we'll call him, was not only a cop, he was also a family violence officer. But he underestimated Hazel. A family violence intervention order was taken out to protect her.
I literally felt my life depended on it. And I still firmly believe that had that not have happened, I would be in a box right now.
Under scrutiny, Officer A quietly resigned from the force. But months later, just as Hazel was starting to feel a sense of freedom return to her life, she noticed a car outside her workplace.
Nobody, surely, would be that mad to fly in the face of a court-issued order, especially when they know from their work and their job what the penalties are. Better than anyone else.
Was it him?
Yes, it was.
You called the police. What did they tell you to do?
Leave. Immediately. Get to a safe place.
Officer A was gone before police arrived.
I firmly believe that he was tipped off and told to leave.
Let down by the police system, Hazel has taken the brave decision to speak out.
Once you start unpacking the horror that's been your life and you put it into words and you delve into things that you've just had to survive from one day to the next, you can look back on it and go, how did I survive that? I needed to stop this from happening to someone else, and I also needed it down in a safe place because if I died, it's on record. People will know why and what happened, and maybe after the fact there might be some kind of justice.
Hazel isn't alone in feeling her police abuser was getting protection from inside the force. Melbourne mother of two and lawyer Jay was subject to shocking abuse at the hands of policeman Darren Hanegraaff. She fought for years to get an apology from police after they leaked her safety plan to flee to Sydney to Hanegraaff's police mates.
How did you get them to finally apologise?
Paper warfare. Rather than breaking me, it just made me go, no, this is actually why I need to fight you. This is why I need to call out your behaviour.
Do you think they underestimated you?
Slightly, yeah.
Massively.
I think they expected me to break and go away, and that's not my personality type.
How on earth can a victim's safety plan be leaked to the perpetrator?
Well, I can't talk about specifics of any case, but in general terms, I think that Victoria Police is very serious about its information and a need to know and who has the right to have that information. So where there are cases where police leak information in an inappropriate or an illegal way, we will come down hard on them.
There's no excuses there for a safety plan being leaked.
There's no excuse.
It took years for police to apologise. The officer who leaked the information has not been disciplined. Victorian Assistant Commissioner for Family Violence Lauren Calloway concedes failings and says police must improve.
We can do better. I appreciate all the reasons why people may not trust police. They've had bad experiences. But my commitment is that going forward, we will do better on this.
That may sound hollow, given we've had royal commissions, horrific incidents played across our national newspapers. Why should we trust you?
Because we know how to fix this issue. I think society's attitudes towards family violence, if we look over the last 25 years, are shifting, and we are tackling the things that we know we haven't done well on in the past.
Jay wanted more than just an apology. She agreed to testify in court, hoping to become the first Victorian in 5 years to secure a conviction against the police perpetrator. In February this year, she made history when Senior Constable Darren Hanegraaff pleaded guilty to serious, grave and protracted offending. But it wasn't much of a victory.
Did he go to jail?
No, because he immediately appealed and he got appeal bail.
And what happened?
Justice Paul LaCarver decided he shouldn't go to jail and gave him a 2-year community corrections order that he can satisfy by going to his mental health and alcohol appointments that are funded by Victoria Police and WorkCover.
Did the Victoria Police sack him?
No. No, and that's what really got to me the most. He was sentenced to jail and was still a member, and they hadn't even suspended him. They didn't suspend him for weeks. And then they gave him the chance to resign in advance of his disciplinary hearing so that he could keep all his entitlements, which he did.
What does that say about the system?
It says that Victoria Police doesn't care about family violence, and it says that they prioritise members over victims. They sweep it under the carpet.
Both Hazel and Jay's stories, along with the abysmal conviction rate across Australia, shows how police domestic violence offenders continue to escape justice.
They seem to be a law unto themselves. It's just not the way things are done.
In Victoria, Premier Daniel Andrews is not acting on repeated funding requests from the state's independent police watchdog IBAC, so it can investigate more cases of police misconduct.
They need to be held accountable. Other community serving professionals are held accountable. They don't seem to be.
It means victims need to fight even harder.
We're victims in our own right.
Jay's son, Sam, has turned his pain into passion, wanting to make sure other children like him are recognised as real victims.
I think police need to be treated like normal people.
Are you going to keep fighting for that change?
Yes, I am. I'm going to keep fighting until that change happens. I feel like I have to do this. I have to do this for all the children that don't have a voice, for all the children who are broken by fear, for all the children who are traumatised like me.
Even though the abuse is over, there is little comfort for Jay and her family. She'll keep fighting on, but for now she has one simple wish for her own future.
The best revenge for any sort of injustice like this is living your best life, and that's what I want us to do.
You think you'll get there?
Yeah. But we'll try and change the system in the meantime.
If you're experiencing domestic or family abuse, support is available at 1800 RESPECT, which is 1800 737 732.
Hello, I'm Liz Hayes. Thanks for watching. To keep up with the latest from 60 Minutes Australia, make sure you subscribe to our channel. You can also download the 9 Now app for full episodes and other exclusive 60 Minutes content.